Hello everyone, I hope you're all having a wonderful Sunday as we are continuing our saga of the US Chess Championship where Fabi already lost 2 classical games and as the highest rated player in the event has to really fight to get back into the race. He's trailing the leaders by a 1 point margin and we're gonna see can he improve on that as there are still 3 more rounds to go. So here he faces Dariusz Świercz and it's a really incredible game that shows us how to play for the win when you absolutely have to win. Let's check it out. Fabi with the white pieces opens with c4. He goes for the English opening. Sorry about that. And we have knight to f6 by Świercz, going for the sort of Anglo-Indian defense. We have knight to c3 and e5. Now, knight f3, knight to c6, and we have the 4 knights of the English. We have g3 by Fabi, preparing to fianchetto his light square bishop, and bishop to b4, putting pressure on the knight here. We have bishop to g2, and now Świercz castles. And now knight to d5, an excellent square for the knight, putting pressure on black's bishop, and of course hoping to pick it up. You can't really trade here. If you trade, we simply capture and then the defender of the e5 pawn is attacked. And if you go for some tricky lines like knight captures, pawn captures in e4, still not really all that much. We're going to play knight to h4, and once the knight moves, we're going to pick up the e4 pawn. So black continues as black always does in this position, bishop to c5. And now, how do you play for the win from the absolute start? I'm sure you guys already know the move. The usual move here is just castles, and then the game continues. But Fabi goes for the absolute strongest move for white in any position, and that, of course, is pawn to b4. Now, offering a pawn, attacking the bishop, well, if the bishop moves, we might even attack the knight and remove the defender of the e5 pawn, much like one would, for example, in the Evans Gambit. So here, black accepts the challenge. Knight captures on b4. We have knight captures and bishop captures on b4. Knight captures on e5, winning the pawn back. And now the position has been reached twice before. Once in a really notable game from the 2019 Sinquefield Cup between Anish Giri and Sergei Karyakin, where d5 was played by Karyakin, but here we have rook to e8 by Świercz going after the knight here, and it is now only as of move 9 that we have a completely new game. So how does Fabi continue here? Well, one might expect something like b3, we defend the knight, then black plays d6, and then the game continues, knight f3, and we got sort of a, equalish position, but Fabi goes for knight to d3. Again, puts pressure on the bishop, blocks his own d-pawn, and says, nope, this knight is coming to f4. And this will be an excellent square for this knight, because you do not have the e-pawn to kick away my knight from f4, and also, well, I'm definitely not expecting you to play g5 and open up your king like this. So my knight will be there for as long as I please. So here we have bishop to a5. Also, an interesting retreat is bishop back to f8, but we're going to discuss this a little bit later. Bishop to a5, maybe with ideas of bishop b6, putting pressure on the king side, or even c6 can be played and then putting the bishop all the way to c7. So here we have castles by Fabi and c6 now. E3 and now d6, and now finally knight to f4. The knight is now on an excellent square. The bishop is coming on this long diagonal, and well, white's position is very enjoyable. We have bishop to f5 and now bishop to b2. We have bishop to e4 now, hoping to trade off one of Fabi's strong bishops, also an excellent defender here, but Fabi says, nope, I'm just gonna assume control of this diagonal because your bishop just left that and you cannot go back with bishop to f5. So my bishop is very strong here. I'm going to play d3, kick away your bishop, and then if needed, I'm going to bring my bishop back to this diagonal. So rook to b8, black wants to start pushing with b5. It would be great if the b file could open up, but Fabi plays first d3, chases away the bishop, bishop back to g6, and now bishop to g2, stopping b5 as then the c6 pawn would fall. So bishop to c7, the bishop really isn't doing all that much on a5. We have to improve the position of our pieces, and now a4 by Fabi. We have a6 and now e4. So now we're at move 19, and you can see the position is, well, anything but equal. Fabi has a monster knight here, he has a monster bishop here, and it's just hard to find a reasonable plan for black. There's no move that seems to be improving black's position. So black tries executing d5. Now this is very dangerous as as you'll see what Fabi does. So C captures on d5, C captures on d5, and now Schwerch is saying, okay, if you want to pick up this pawn, you have to give up your monster bishop for my knight here, and then you're welcome to pick up the pawn. But Fabi says, all right, that's exactly what I'm going to do. So he plays bishop captures on f6, queen captures, and now knight captures on d5, attacking the queen and the bishop, so the queen has to go back to defend the bishop. You can do it via queen to d6 or queen to d8. Queen to d8 is what was played, and now h4 by Fabi, preparing h5. This will kick away the bishop, and then you might consider some queen to g4 ideas, maybe knight to f4 in the future, and putting some pressure on the black king. And here you could play h6 to kind of make room for bishop on h7, but Schwerch plays f6 instead. He wants to make room on his bishop on f7, or if the rook moves, even on the e8 square. And now we have rook to c1, going after the bishop here. So the bishop is now attacked twice. We have bishop to d6 and now knight back to e3. This is what we wanted. We want to play queen to g4, push h5, push h6, maybe bring the knight to f5 and put some pressure on the black king like this. So b5, Schwerch says, all right, I'm going to have to play on the queen side. You are obviously stronger on the king side. I'm going to create a pass pawn here and push it to victory, hopefully. So Fabi captures, we have a captures on b5, and now queen to g4. So preparing this h5 move. So bishop back to f8. Remember when we said in the beginning of the game that the bishop might be better suited on f8? Well, it found its way there, regardless. So rook f to d1, we have to defend our pawn, and also we might consider also pushing those pawns, and now b4 by black. We have d4 by Fabi and b3 now. So this is now a really, really dangerous pass pawn, but luckily the e4 pawn stops this bishop from guarding b1, so after b2 we can always play something like rook to b1. h5 by Fabi, bishop back to f7. Instead of bishop to f7, you could play b2 right away, of course, and after rook to b1, then move the bishop, but it doesn't seem to be giving black anything. So instead, bishop back to f7, and now Fabi plays d5, cut off the bishop again, well, we simply don't care about this pawn. If or rather, you should care about this pawn, but only if black acts accordingly right away. For example, if b2, rook b1, now the rook left the c file, and we can play queen to c8, and this is how we slow down white's attack. The queen now has to move, it can't really remain there, and after some like queen to e2, we just continue playing the game. We can even activate further with queen to c8, and maybe somehow get our bishop pair active, maybe something like queen to c3, bring the bishop to c5, put pressure here. So there are options here. However, black played king to h8, and this gives Fabi just enough time. He plays rook to b1, and now again, if queen to c8, we're just going to move the queen, but it's a little bit different now. Black plays bishop to c5. Of course, he would very much enjoy capturing this knight. Fabi just brings it to f5. But now what black did is he freed the g8 square for his rook. So rook to g8 now guards against checkmate here. But the problem is you always have to be careful when boxing your king in like this, because it's somewhat easy to take advantage of it. And here you should play h6. It seems counterintuitive because you open up the g file for the black rook, but here h6 really does a lot for white. And now if g captures on h6, if g5 or something like this, you don't really care. You're going to have an outpost on g7 for your knight. The idea is captures, attacks the queen, and queen back to f3. And now you're going to either pick up the b3 pawn, or you're going to pick up the h6 pawn, attacking the rook and the bishop here. So white is really just enjoying this position. But Fabi said, maybe I don't have to play this right away. I'm going to play queen to f3, put pressure on the b3 pawn, and then I'm going to play h6. So it's pretty much the same thing. But it looks kind of safer. The problem is black has such a brilliant maneuver here that could, definitely punish Fabi for not going h6 right away. But it's really difficult to spot, like really difficult. I even feel bad, for asking you to try and do this on a Sunday. But still, feel free to pause the video here and find this incredible idea for black while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on spotting this incredible defensive resource. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it is bishop captures on h5. That's the good stuff. that's why the pawn had to be pushed to h6 right away and did not allow this incredible resource from black. This was not played in the game. This is just something that was in the position, but it's hard to spot. And now the thing is, if queen captures, we just play g6, and we don't care. We're gonna capture the knight, and the white is still okay, but you know, giving up the knight like this, maybe not the way to go. So what white would probably do here if bishop captures is play g4, push back the bishop, but the problem is after bishop to e8, now you have problems of picking up the b3 pawn. If rook captures b3, we're gonna play bishop to a4, and now everything just gets traded down. Rook captures, queen captures, your rook is under attack, our bishop pair has been activated, and the attack is, almost but gone, but black has very firm control of the position, and the queen controls the dark squares here. If the bishop goes here, then the pawns will never be able to advance over those dark squares, so it would be a brilliant way of defending. However, black missed this bishop captures on h5 idea. He played rook to b4. He does the exact same mistake Fabi made. He said, I can do this later on, but he can't really. Here, the problem is he's trying to trick Fabi. He wants Fabi to play rook captures on b3, and then he wants to capture on h5, tricking Fabi like this, but it's pretty much doing the same thing Fabi did. He thought that he could do it one move later, but he can't. Now, of course, the position would be much better for black. If you pick up the bishop, you lose the rook. If you move the queen, then you lose this rook and then this rook. It would be good for black. But Fabi said, nope, I'm not going to capture on b3. I'm going to play h6 now. So it's sort of as, you know, during those two moves, both Fabi and Schwerch thought that something was possible when in fact it wasn't. So really a fun moment in chess altogether. So here we have g6, not really interested in opening up the g file, knight to g7 by Fabi, and now b2. So getting rid of this pressure of rook captures on b3, and now the pawn on b2 is very dangerous, but Fabi finds this incredible e5 move. Now the d5 pawn is nicely protected twice, you don't have to worry about that. And now what do you do about this? There's not much you can do. You can't capture the bishop on f7 hangs, so here we have bishop to d4. And now Fabi advances the pawn all the way. We have e6, chasing the bishop back, bishop to e8, and now this piece is doing nothing, this piece is doing nothing, the queen really not doing all that much. So the only active piece is this bishop here, which is really controlling a lot, so we're just going to eliminate it. This is what Fabi does. Rook captures on d4, rook captures, and rook captures on b2, getting that beautiful passed b pawn as well. And now you don't really have an active move here for black. Here Schwerch tries bishop to a4. Of course, you gain some control over the d1 square, but the king will be very safe on h2, and also it's very hard to activate your pieces here. The queen can't move, you have to keep an eye on f6. The rook doesn't really have anywhere to go. So rook to b7, a very nice rook lift by Fabi, and now comes f5. So what can you play here? Well, Fabi goes for the quickest way possible. Not the quickest way is actually even more interesting. Fabi goes for knight captures on f5. And it's a beautiful move. Knight to h5 was even faster, because now there's not all that much you can do. Queen to c3 is coming with a terrible threat, but also if the knight is captured, then just queen captures on f5. You can't stop checkmate. There's no defense here for black. Fabi plays a similar line. He plays knight captures on f5, and now what do you do? The rook is attacked. If the knight is captured, it's the same thing. Queen will deliver checkmate. This is unstoppable. So Schwerch tries rook to d1 check. As we said, the bishop nicely defends the rook, but after king h2, there's not all that much you can play here. Queen to f6 now, hoping that if the knight moves, at least we can trade queens and maybe continue playing this, but Fabi just plays knight to d6, and he was in this position on move 44 that Darius Schwerch resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. The problem is your queen is attacked. If you move the queen, the knight f7 is just checkmate. The pawn covers the g7 square. There's no stopping that. And if you trade queens, it's not much better. Just to give you an example, bishop captures on f3, attacks the rook on d1. Of course, we have to move this rook, but where do we move it? It's a very, very tricky question, because if we move the rook, let's say rook to a1, just knight to f7 again with checkmate. So we have to play something like rook to a8, allow our king the g8 square to escape. Now we pick up the rook, and after bishop captures on d1, of course this endgame is completely winning. For those of you who really enjoy when I finish the games, we can push e7, and after bishop to e4, controlling some light squares here, we're gonna play knight to e4, make room for this pawn to start advancing forward, and black is without moves. The d7 square is protected. We're gonna play d6, d7, and that's it. Whatever black plays, d6, doesn't really matter. King g8, we're gonna play knight g5, take away the f7 square from the black king, bishop to c6, but now we still don't care, just d7, and that's it. We're either capturing here, or if bishop captures, we simply play rook captures on d7, and now the black is without moves. You have to play something, rook to d8, and that's it. Whatever you play, we can even bring a rook into the game to deliver checkmate, as our good friend the pawn here guards the g7 square. So really an impressive game, and it really shows you how to play for the win when you absolutely must win, and this is definitely the position Fabi found himself in after losing 2 classical games. Not 1, but 2, which is for him incredible. I can't say I remember last time he lost 2 games in a row in a classical tournament. But yeah, here just incredible stuff in this position after bishop to c5, just going for the kill right away with b4. It's such an impressive idea. But like I said, it's a known position, but the b4 only played 2 times here. So this is how deep Fabi dug in to, create some winning chances in this game. So yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it and that it improved your Sunday at least a little bit. What does this mean for the standings? Well, the leaders are still as they were, Lenderman, Sevian, and Wesley So, but Fabi now trailing by half a point. So we'll see if he manages to do it. And in the final 2 rounds, Fabi will face Lenderman, who is one of the leaders, and Wesley will face Samuel Sevian, who is also one of the leaders. So it's basically, if Fabi does incredibly well, the only one who could stop him is Wesley So, but both Lenderman and Sevian have been playing an incredible tournament. So, of course, we are expecting them to finish strong in the last 2 games as well. So yeah, that's the game, and a little update about the standings. Hope you guys enjoyed that. I would like to thank Nicolas Taxidis, David Kimura, John Cousins, and Prashant Rawat for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. And also ABCs of Chess for Kids, who says that the book ABCs for Chess for Kids is absolutely free for download on Kindle today and tomorrow, so on the 17th and the 18th of October. So yeah. I hope you guys enjoyed that. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, checking up on the US Chess Championship, also, of course, on your wonderful suggestions, and whatever else happens in the chess world. So thank you all, I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your Sunday.